Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. My name is Chris the High Guy Jacobs, and today we've got part 2 of our Archipelago Raid where GROP had the opportunity to host 3 of the top players in the game. We had Nom Nom, we had MP5, and we had OnlyFans. OnlyFans, get that right, people. Not OnlyFans, OnlyFans. And these are 3 players coming to us from HNB, good friends of mine that had the ability to come and slum it with us in GROP, but really give us the capability of being able to push out, have a lot of fun, and teach us a lot when it comes to strategies. For example, one of these first ones that you'll notice, we have a huge field presence, but most of those field troops are spread all over the enemy field. That is done strategically to prevent the enemy from teleporting in. They cannot teleport where there are troops. So if you get troops all over, that means that they have to teleport a lot farther back and start pushing us back in comparison. It also makes it harder for them to join rallies and garrisons, as the longer the distance that they have to walk, the more opportunity you have to kill them and end their troops. So we start by spreading all over the area, building a tower as quick as we can, and burning out the original towers that they have blocking us our way. Now, if you remember at the end of day 3, they hadn't quite pushed us all the way, but we had decided to at least give them the opinion, or at least the view, that we were retreating entirely off the east side, which worked up until we had some blanks in our team decide to build out earlier to quote-unquote protect some of their friends. Regardless of whether I agree with their point or not, it really did create a little bit more of our hindrance. It did start us fighting 2 hours earlier than we had planned, which at the end turns out to be a good thing, as you'll see as we get closer to the end of this video, how close it ends up being for us to succeed or fail, right? So it's one of those things where, the more time that we had to fight, the better. And if it wasn't for these HNB guys, we definitely wouldn't have had the push that we did. Don't get me wrong, we still had some monsters on our legion in the arms of Cyber, what's his name? Cyber Freg from FREW, I believe his name was. I can't remember it off the top of my head. You'll probably see his name in the chats. Or Cyber something, and he's from Fru. And then Slay is there as well. We've got Wait For Me is there as well. So we did have a couple of decent, fighters and things like that. But it definitely, it definitely mattered to have Nom Nom on our side. Definitely mattered to have MP5, and definitely mattered to have Oli in the field. Because without those guys, it would have been a lot harder for us. This situation it kind of allowed us to kind of push through how we wanted to. So we were really just fighting time at this point. Now, near the end, they definitely start to amp up their defense, which makes things really nail-biting, which was fantastic. But remember, our entire goal here is very simple. We knew that gold was non-existent. They did not show up to chainsaw zombies. They did not show up to elite scavengers. They were pushed back to their area very, very quickly. We were told very quickly that there was no communication within their ranks. So there was absolutely nothing that we were expecting from them. So our only hope in order to win this entire thing, or at least give us a chance in phase 2, right? Because we can't win 2v1. That's really difficult to do. And all we have is Nom, OnlyFans, and MP5. And it's a whole legion of 7 alliances, right? This is a full G25, right? This is the top bracket of Fearless. And so it's overloaded. Like I said, we're matched at, 8.5 billion, compared to some of the lower ones. So even for being Fearless, this is great competition. And so as you can see, even having those, we weren't able to win a 2v1. So we decided our best bet was to cut directly to their 6, to the 6 on Jade's side, southeast. And then after that, cut them off from their tower. If we can cut them off from their 7 as well, and capture the 6, that will force a coin toss, that will either pair us with Crimson or pair us with Jade or Gold. Now, because we currently held the left, that would lock us on the left side. And so there is some tower play that we have to do. But the whole concept is to leave it up to a coin toss. If we can leave it up to a coin toss, if we can cut the 6 and if we can capture the 6 and cut Jade from the 7, we get the result that we want, which gives us a possible pairing with Crimson instead of Gold. And if we can force that cross-map pairing, that's going to give us much more into phase 2 than we're going to, anticipate. So that's what our entire goal is, right? Now, unfortunately, some players did miss the memo. As you can start to see, they're building straight up towards the gate instead, when in reality, we should be building directly towards the 6. Keep those troops built out and spread out over the area so that they have a tough time relocating while we're destroying towers. But stay on focus and build directly towards the 6. We can start to remove some of those old labels now that we have a little bit more room to work with. To allow a little bit more of those players to move in, which I will do eventually. I'm still working a little bit on my label control as well, but it seemed like in this AR, a lot of it was on my responsibility anyways, because I just ended up doing a lot of it. And so people kind of just let me, which was nice. They kind of let me lead, which, you know, you don't get very often. It was kind of nice in the leadership chats. So from everybody at GROP, guys, congratulations. Well done. Anybody that we played with in AR, it was a really, really fun one. And I really do appreciate you giving us kind of the freedom to do what we needed to do. I'm assuming a lot of it was to do with who we brought with us. But obviously, I think a lot of it has to do with how successful we were at the beginning of the fights, how successful we were in the push of the fights. You know, even throughout when we did chainsaws and when we did elite scavengers, like you guys saw, we were fairly active. We were probably one of the more active alliances, legions in the group. We just had insurmountable odds to deal with. And as you can see, even in this situation where we've got a ton of field pressure, this is the kind of performance that we had at the times that we needed. It was just the fact that you can't do it all by yourself. Unfortunately, you know, well, I guess fortunately, Archipelago Raid is one of those things where you literally can't do it by yourself. You got to work with, well, in our situation, 6 other alliances. So now, as we're seeing the tower start to go down, we are joining as many rallies as we can. We're kind of joining as many garrisons as we can. I'm not much of a field fighter. I don't have the troop counts to be able to field fight, and I can't really afford it right now. Just because it is far more expensive to field fight. You end up losing a lot more troops. You end up, you know, managing your resources and stuff a lot more in the hospital. So a lot of what I focus on is where I can be the most impactful, which is garrison. I do have an almost 4 million, or it's a 3.6 million Thunder with a level 62 Pangolin. You know, so I do pretty well on garrison, and I'm able to, you know, sustain very well. But most of my troops do go for garrison and rally filling. Sorry. But again, that's why you gotta find the alliance that works best for you. Find the alliance that plays within your pocketbook, but find one that also plays within your playstyle. Because if you're a field fighter and you go into an alliance that has a ton of field fighters already, and you're missing some rally leaders or garrison leaders, it makes it a little difficult. If you're a rally or garrison leader and you go into an alliance that has no field fighters, that makes it really difficult. So it requires an alliance to have a good balance of everything. And so finding those players is obviously a lot to do with the success of your alliance. So putting that out there, if you are watching this, looking out for a place to play, looking out for a new place to play, your maybe tier 5 or tier 6 rally and garrison fillers, or you're looking to step into the leadership position with ranged riders or infantry, you got a couple of good marches in that. Don't hesitate. Feel free to reach out. GROP is always looking for new talent, and we're especially looking for new talent that we can bring into those lead positions. So don't hesitate. You can always do that. Now, jumping back to the action here, you can see me kind of looking through the map a little bit, seeing where everyone's progressing. Just because we are getting close, we are in that last section right before reset, before factions are made. So I'm kind of curious where people are building for towers. And then here is just me planning out kind of our pathway, our general idea and where I want those towers to go to get us to the 6 as quick as we can. Plus, give us a little bit more mobility up to the level 6, to the gate as well, level 5 gate that we need to as well. Now, as you can see, we still built up a little bit north. They started to counter build, which is fine. That gets them wasting a little bit more cement, and any cement that we can get them to waste is great for us. And we're not going up that side anyways, right? So if they're going to build a couple more towers to defend that way, that's totally up to them. Sorry about that. I'm going to sneeze. Nope, no, I'm not. Gotcha. No, but I seriously was. Anyways, back to the action. We've got Father down south trying to get some field battling in, fighting off some of the guys that are pushing our tower builders. Peeny is one of the guys that was there. Pknee. He was one of the guys that was consistently around, not necessarily in the heat of battle, but always around kind of like the backside doing a lot of stuff, which is a really interesting, a really interesting strategy. Not participating in the fights, but trying to hinder in the backside. Like you'll see, he tries to take the 6 back from us. He tries to take, build some other towers. He's kind of active in the backside of things, but never kind of up front. It's more espionage for him, which is, like I said, it's a really interesting strategy. Whether you agree with it or not is entirely a different story. So here we got some field battles. They did end up having some really interesting garrisons. Interesting in the sense that like a couple of them were really good. So we did have a couple of Chasey Felixes to deal with, but we did have an Ethan Sophie that we had to deal with as well. And that Ethan Sophie, surprisingly, was a really, really decent, like a really tanky garrison to try to cut through. So it kind of also changed my opinion a little bit about Ethan. I thought he wasn't going to be useful outside of garrison, and specifically because range doesn't do garrison, it wasn't going to matter. But I think I might rescind that now that I've kind of seen him in action himself. He ends up being fairly good. Now, in this situation, we just end up swarming the tower once the rally hits, and then swarming it out because, Chasey Felix is one of those hindrances where they don't do as well when you swarm them. So send the main rally, get 1 or 2 rallies, and then you have a much easier time swarming them because they don't do enough damage outside of their main like skill damage or basic attack damage, things like that. Okay. So again, just some field fighting. We're moving in closer, slow relocating as we're moving east. Got some buffs going out, going to do some field fighting and things like that as we can. Some of the other players are going to go try to get cement. I think MP5 is on his way to get some cement. We got Father here pushing with us as well. We've got some more rallies and towers to build as we're building across. We're building across not to touch their towers, so not in order to instigate more things to fight with, but just to build through their territory and kind of give us the freedom that we need to. They start building into us as well as a form of defense, which is totally fine because it's not really hindering our placement too much. We'll just end up moving a little bit north in comparison. Which, when you think about it, it's going to do a little bit better for us just because that does allow us more access to their gate, which is where we want to get to after we take the 6. So now we finally bring some of that field presence over into the backside here where we can actually push some of them off of our tower areas where we're building. But again, you've got DDA there. DDA was the Alliance DDA. I can't pronounce their names. Very active. I think they dominated the War Meets War boards. So super active, lots of 5 squads out all the time. So I give them a lot of credit. They were kind of our biggest hindrance, as you'll say. But even at this point, there's another thing that I noticed that they did strategically. So when we started to invade, they also started to summon a whole bunch of the crazed zombies that you have in your inventory, the ones that you can only attack by rally. So they summoned a whole bunch of those, which is going to stop us from being able to teleport in as well. So strategically, because most of the rallies that we're running are tier 5 and tier 6, so we can't really necessarily allow the tier 4s to play much because the tier 4s will just hinder the rallies. We tasked the tier 4s and some of the tier 5s with rallying those zombies instead, because the more that we can get rid of those, the easier it is for us to move in. And obviously that gives them something to do, some focus as well, instead of just waiting. The problem with this game is that as you tier your troops, it does cut you out of things. So if you have tier 4 troops fighting in an alliance with tier 5 and tier 6, does mean that you either spend a lot of time waiting for those rallies to open up when the tier 5s and tier 6s are eventually dead or dying or in a hospital or whatever, or they're relegated to doing crazed zombies and things like that so we can free up some space. It's a lot of kind of, it becomes the grunt work, but it's also needed. So it's a situation that says, if you have tier 4 or less, don't feel bad about not being part of all the main battles, because you'll get there eventually. You just have to realize that, unfortunately, a tier 4, typically, even against tier 5 or tier 6, isn't going to do very well. Are there special cases? Yes, absolutely. There are some players who have made their names off of having very strong tier 5 who are able to fight tier 6, right? There's a ton of players that are actually like that, and it is possible. But it is a hyper-focus. You have to do it specifically. It's not something you can just do willy-nilly. You have to do it yourself. Now, as I'm looking at these towers here, we've got one placed. I'm thinking of the next one because they did wall us off. I wanted to put it up north, which is where I ended up putting the tower marker. Hindsight 2020, I probably should have built straight into them instead. But it is something that I still kind of look at as I don't think it's what causes the inevitable outcome. Because it's one of those things where it gave us the room that we needed up close. It gave us some of the territory that we needed to. It did, however, open up the territory for them to start attacking the places that I didn't want them to and kind of split our focus. So this is kind of where things start to teeter a little bit. And as we can see, we're now 2.5 hours in. So we're down to the last 3.5 hours of our push. We've done pretty well, but now they're starting to respond. They're building a lot of towers to defend against us. They're responding, they're starting to move in and respond against us. They're starting to garrison more. They're starting field presence more. So they're starting to wake up, which is unfortunate for us, right? Because that's exactly what we don't want them to do. Ideally, we'd like them to sleep throughout this whole thing. But the benefit is that we end up draining a ton of their resources because we end up having them build, I think, upwards of 10 or 15 towers just to end up defending against us, which is ideal, right? So even if we did... even if we did get the matching that we wanted, this would have really hindered Jade moving forward and given Crimson, who would have been our pairing, a huge move forward at the time. So our goal is to get some of these towers down before they end up building. Unfortunately, we don't. Still building forward, still pushing forward, able to kind of maintain that field presence as we have. But a lot of this is still under the guise and under the leadership of myself, Nom Nom, MP5, and OnlyFans. So a lot of us, we were in communications a lot in chat. You can see the chat kind of flicker with their information fairly often. We spent a lot of time in private chats, kind of strategizing what we were doing. So I give them a ton of credit. Like I've mentioned before, and I mentioned in past videos, if it wasn't for the HNB boys, we wouldn't have had near the presence that we were able to maintain. And they also helped me. Like, I really got to put my big boy pants on and step more into the leadership position. Normally, I kind of let, like our generals and things like that guide things more. But I really took the leadership reins in this Archipelago Raid for the first phase, which I really, really appreciate. Again, I think I might have mentioned it already, but thanks a lot to everybody who joined in our Legion, for following as best as we did. It really, really was a lot of fun. And this 6 hour skirmish, pardon me, was an absolute blast. We're getting up just about to the halfway point in that 6 hour skirmish here. We're almost at the 3 hour mark. Now it looks like, if you were to think about it, our progress should not be hindered much more than it is. But like I mentioned, putting that tower up north unfortunately started to open us up to too much confrontation. So now we had a tower down here to open up, a tower on the north to burn down, a tower that they just built into us, another tower that they just built. So it gave us a whole bunch of things to focus on and spread our focus too thin. And this is where I honestly think was my biggest mistake, right? Because if I had not built that tower then, if I had built it straight across instead, we would have managed to capture the 6 earlier and then focused our attention and had much more concentrated effort. Instead, I was trying to think big brain in the sense that it was only me that was able to build towers or plan towers and not having to work with everybody else. And I forgot that unfortunately, you're working with everybody else. So trying to coordinate with 7 other alliances is a massive, massive undertaking. Okay, especially when you're dealing with leaders from different cultures, different communities, it becomes an entirely different thing. I've worked with some really difficult Korean alliances. I've worked with some really great Korean alliances. I've worked with some really difficult Russian alliances, some really great Russian alliances. So, I mean, a lot of it comes down to, the alliance itself and what their mentality is. And so, if you wake up, for example, into a legion like Gold that was doing nothing, it's not every legion or every alliance's fault because there were some that were trying. But when your main whales are sitting out, well, you know, it's an issue in the game. And I honestly think the developers need to address that. IGG by itself needs to address the fact that you have 300 million whales playing with 10 million, you know, players. Like 300 million mite whales playing with 10 million mite players. So in my opinion, IGG should kind of address it in either limiting where accounts can go, what regions they can go to, anything like that. Or, you know, even to the sense of, you know, locking regions based on the mite. So prevent them from going to the newer ones, lock them into the top even 100 regions for a certain amount of mite. Up to a certain amount of mite goes into the next regions, you know what I mean? To kind of prevent any kind of, you know, mass situations where you have these whales that are, in my opinion, sandbagging. Now, don't get me wrong. We're in a situation where NOM, MP5, and OnlyFans, pardon me, are technically sandbagging as well. But they bring up our rating. Like we rated in, we went into matchmaking at 5 billion mite, but our rating and matching was at 8.5 billion, which, you know, makes things a little bit more even. But in comparison to the average player, you know, the average 40 million, 50 million mite player, which we still have a handful of on our team, a decent amount of, they don't get any opportunities to play at all because everything is restricted to tier 5 and tier 6 troops. And, you know, their tier 4s and tier 3s get melted on the field almost instantly, right? So it's definitely something IGG needs to address, but they won't address it here in this video. In this video, though, we are going to jump back into where, for some reason, they've built another tower up north, which I don't understand. I'm sitting here scratching my head. They're trying to build up towards something else, and I'm telling them, no, listen, we have to focus on the tower. A lot of chat happening right now is, no, you have to focus on the tower. No, we have to focus on the tower. Let's get the tower. And then we had a whole bunch of people that were attacking the tower that didn't have max, didn't have max burn tech. So trying to manipulate that and manage that as well was really, really kind of frustrating. So this is a huge bit of advice to any of these budding alliances. One of the major things that you want outside of your military tech is your burn tech and your tower strength tech. You want to get those as high as you can, kind of as fast as you can. Even in our farm account, we're getting those up to 10 as quick as we can because that's so important. That makes your watchtowers a 7,200 HP and you burn it 5 damage a second instead of less than that, instead of 3 or 2 or what have you. Okay, so make sure you're also focusing on tower damage or tower burn rate and tower HP. But as we go, we're still running a whole 3 rallies. As you can see, I'm doing a lot of rally checking. I'm doing a lot of rally maintenance, tower maintenance as well when we're starting to get into some garrisons and things like that. You know, in these situations when we're winning the rallies and winning the trades, we kind of just let the rallies run. Because if you're winning the trades, even if it takes a little bit longer, I mean, we still got 2.5 hours to get things done. And really all we're trying to do right now is get to the 6. Once we get to the 6, we can cut right through and then we can cut up to the gate pretty easily after that. But it's going to take a little bit of work and it's going to take a little bit of coordination. Now, I had it suggested to me to try to build around south underneath them. So I started to look at that a little bit as a possible opportunity. The problem is we were out of cement, and I'm not sure exactly what the rest of the alliances were looking like for cement. So knowing that we needed to keep as much as we could for the upcoming, you know, scourges and things like that, we figured, at least I figured, it would be better to go through because it would take us at least 4 towers to go around and two towers to go through. So I figured that would probably be a better one. But even there is another one where we pop another tower. The unfortunate thing is at this moment, they're also starting to attack in the north. They're starting to rally in the north. And this is where we start to have problems with a Chasey and an Ethan coming up here shortly. So just stay tuned for those. Because like I said, it was pretty surprising. It left me wondering, actually, if Ethan is going to be a little bit more beneficial than I thought he was going to be. I knew he was going to be a beast in Garrison, but like, because my whole thought process is that riders or ranged, don't do near as much Garrison, so it won't be near as influential. But if he is as, you know, tanky as he is for ranged, it might be exactly what needs to, you know what I'm saying? Like, it might be exactly what needs to happen. Here we are swarming again, popping up with another tower, building straight towards that 6. Like I said, our entire goal, my entire focus at this point is just to take that 6. We've got a couple of other rallies that are heading up north. Unfortunately, they're still focused on cutting them up there. They're trying, like, half of them are trying to cut up to the northeast, while the rest of us are trying to cut to the 6. So it's I don't want to say 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, but that's exactly what it is, right? And unfortunately, that's splitting our focus, splitting our impact, splitting our influence or our efficiency. And even when we go up here, we start to face some problems against their tower. Even just busting a Felix Chasey when we're not having the right ones because we don't have the right rallies going up there. We're trying too many different things all at the same time. But again, once you get Chasey down, the easiest part about having a Chasey is that it's easy to swarm them. They start to move around a little bit more. Our target, again, is that 6. That's what we're going for. Joining as many rallies as we can in order to get us the points that we can. We still ended the event over 110 million points in the first 3 days, and 90% of that came from rallies and garrisons. So don't tell me you can't. It can do it as long as you join rallies and garrisons. As we continue, you can start to see we are fighting 2 different towers and trying to control field presence in both. I'm getting fed up at this point. Truth be told, I've got a migraine forming. And I'm trying to get people to move out of the north side to focus on the level 6 first. That is our goal. If we don't get that level 6, nothing matters. If we get the level 6, at least there's a coin toss. And that's the important part. If we don't get the level 6, there's nothing. Okay? So, from what I understand and from what it was explained to me, it works like this. Pardon me. It works like this. Whoever captures the level 7 on either side of the map will be locked to that side of the defense, okay? So in our situation, Jade has the level 7 on their side of the map. Crimson currently has the level 6 on both sides of the map, okay? So our concept is this. If we take the level 6 on the right side of the map and cut off their level 7, that means that nobody's captured a level 7, so nobody's locked. And Crimson and Jade own towers on each of the sides. So that would force a pairing with Crimson and Jade. Crimson and Azure, pardon me, sorry. That would force a pairing with Crimson and Azure, and then force a pairing with Jade and Gold. We would dump Jade onto Gold. But this involves us having to take the 6 and then cut the gate. If we don't cut the gate, we have 2 options, okay? Because we have the 6, and Crimson also has the 6, we can leave it as it is and take a coin toss and hopefully get the pairing that we want, or we can turn around, capture the 7 for the guaranteed rewards, and then peace out a couple of days out of AR early. But until then, we still have this fight to deal with. So we're pushing into the 6. We've got towers built. They've started to build behind us to try to cut us off. So we're trying to respond there as well. Now we've got 3 fronts that we're trying to fight on, which makes it difficult. And we're down to only 2 hours left. Now, if you don't know anything about this, towers take approximately, I think it's 27 minutes to burn. Right? So if you have them burning properly, right, at, let's say they're a full tower and you have them burning properly at 5 per second, that's going to take, sorry, give me 1 second. That's going to take 24 minutes of burn time. Okay, so it's going to take 24 minutes to burn a 7200 tower. So already we're in a situation where we're going to be running out of time if we don't focus. And unfortunately, as you can probably tell by my candor and the things that I may have said, we end up falling a little bit short. All right, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but guess what, folks? We end up falling a little bit short. Does that make it any less exciting? I don't think so. Because the truth is, it comes down to my voice just squeaked there and I just realized that. And I swear I'm not going through puberty, okay? So don't make that joke. Don't read me in the comments that I'm still going through puberty because that's not what happened. But the truth is, okay? The truth is it comes down to our hyper-focus. Here, even in this situation, again, they summoned a lot more of these zombies to kind of stop our progression around the 6, which is totally fine because we can hold the 6 once we get there. Right? Once we get to the 6, we can hold it, and that's not an issue. So we've got a tower built. We've got a couple of burned down. We're basically taking a stack at a time, burning some of the heroes or some of the shelters that we can that were asleep in the process. They did it to us. Why don't we do it to them? Right? It only makes sense. MP5 coming in running rallies. Man, the guy was a beast. I got to give these guys credit. After watching everything that these guys do, I'm jealous, number one, for their capabilities and the amount that they're able to do. Because at the end of the day, this game is not cheap. And fighting to the extent that these guys do is insane, right? We're talking 400, 500, 600, over 1 billion points. Okay, here it is. Here's this Ethan rally. Look at that. Just destroy Stella. Just destroy Stella Bodala. We're like, okay, that didn't work well. And now we've got 3 towers that we're trying to burn down. Like, this is just, again, where we're just distracted. Right? We're distracted from the focus of going. Now, granted, our tower was burning anyway, so we didn't really have anything else to do going south. But we didn't need to take this tower anyways. This is a lot of wasted troops that we didn't need to go for. Because we're not just going to cut that tower. They've already built towers behind to defend. So this is all wasted troops and wasted efforts. We should have been building northwest towards it and to start cutting them off instead. That's what we should have been doing. But of course, hindsight 2020, when I'm looking at it now, right? I can only win so many times. But now we're coming down to it. We've only got an hour and a half left of gameplay, which is insane to me that we're still in this. Like I said, asking anybody to sit for 6 hours and play a mobile game is crazy. And the majority of people did very, very well. Some dipped out early, and I totally understand. If you had to take a 10-minute break to go eat, totally understand. But again, it came down to everyone's presence. And I have to give massive shout out, not only to the GROP players themselves, to the players in Fru, players in Hetty, players in our whole Legion. But again, it was just a situation, an experience that I wouldn't trade for anything. So now we're going to build this tower here so we can take the 6, scouting it a little bit. Hindsight 2020 shouldn't have built, whoever built the tower shouldn't have built it. They should have built it one lower. Because had they built it one lower, it wouldn't be touching the tower, and then it wouldn't be at risk of being demolished very easily after we take the, like, it wouldn't be able to be demolished after we take the 6 for a little bit of extra defense. So it's one of those things we want to be cautious of. And then here I am trying to mark out our path towards the gate. Now, again, another mistake I made, and this is just to prove that I'm not perfect. Another mistake I made was trying to cut one tower too many to the east when there was a much weaker tower that we should have been focusing on that I didn't get notice on until later. But our goal after we got to that 6, which is what we built to, was now we're going to build to that 6. We're going to build to that gate, pardon me, and cut them off from the 7. Because if we can cut them off from the 7, then we get the coin toss that we want, and hopefully we get the phase, right? Coming down to the last hour of game. This is nuts. Still haven't reached it. We still have 3 towers to burn, right? Possibly 2 towers to burn. Take 24 minutes. You see how we're starting to get nail-biting close here? Nail-biting close. Again, looking at where people are building. Now we have to build a tower to the 7 because if we do not, here's the thing, if we do not cut them off, our best bet is to capture the 7 for guaranteed phase 1 rewards, right? Because otherwise it's a coin toss and we can end up losing everything. So take our win instead. Gambler's thing, take your win, right? Gambler's motto, take your win and move. Like, you know what I mean? How does that go? Know when to fold them, right? So it's one of those situations where we look at it and go, we're going to start looking defensively if we can't take it. Because around this time, we're starting to piece together that it's going to be very difficult, or at least down to the wire, for us to capture the gate, right? We've got the 6. It's defended well. Now our goal now is to push. And we have to push to that gate, and we've got 1 hour to do it. So everyone starts to come out. Everyone starts to get focused. We're starting to build. We've got 1 area to go. The focus is redirected, but we've only got 1 hour to do it. So we start to bring all the troops up front. We've got MP5 garrisoned in the tower. Pardon me for that. That was absolutely disgusting for you. They're scouting our tower. They want to see what they have. And of course, Peony comes in behind again, as he does, and tries to swarm it on his own. So that was just me going through and kicking all the non-riders, because of course you want to make sure that your troops match your leaders. And I've got Thunder Riven in there, so we want to make sure we've got as much infantry as possible. As we continue, now we're building that second tower up into them. It's almost done. It's got a couple of minutes left. We're garrisoned in the tower. Just waiting for some of the action to pop off so we can start going. They haven't started any rallies against us. I think they're just playing more defensively than anything, which I don't blame them. I mean, at this point, we've pretty much been able to cut through exactly where we wanted to, when we wanted to. So once that happens, I mean, they're just doing everything they can, building towers everywhere that they can, just to stop our progression as fast as they can. So there I am setting up labels. We want to make sure that we're sending those labels and starting rallies at the same time, because you want those rallies to hit approximately at the same time. You want your infantry rally to hit first, followed by, or, you know, your main rally to hit first, followed by the 2 counter rallies after that, or the 2 damage rallies after that. Now, this is me also doing some thinking as we're contemplating this. My thought process was to cut through those 2 towers, build one in the process, or build 1 and cut 2. Instead, we're going to build 2 and cut 1, because that would be a little bit faster. But here it is. Hey, Peony, I told you, Peony tries to take the 6 from us. Now, I'm just happy that I have a decent garrison line, that I'm able to kind of stand up against that. So, pat myself in the back for that. But here's this Ethan again. This Ethan's been showing his face a couple of times, and it just becomes a real pain in my butt. So I think he's actually pretty strong, especially if you have him Awakened Transcended. So you're getting like the full 49% buffs and stuff like that. I mean, he does provide some of the biggest buffs in the game, so it does make sense. And if you pair him with Sophie, like they have him here, there's a ton of damage going out. Just a ton of AoE damage, too. So we're going to look to burn the tower out behind so they can't take the 6 from us. Our target is to build that tower, which we're working on now. We've got 30 minutes left in the game. It becomes really nail-bitey because it's so close, guys. We're literally 1-2 towers away. It's still a possibility. At this point, it's still possible. We've got to keep this tower burning the entire time. It cannot get repaired. It cannot get refilled. It has to stay burning the entire time. That one's good that we get it burned. That's great. But up front, it cannot. Now that we have it burning, it cannot. We've got the tower in place so that we can take the 7 if we need to. We've got 28 minutes left on the clock. We cannot let this get refilled. So we are putting everything into field presence to stop them from refilling and to stop them from garrisoning and refilling. If we can stop them here, we can build up that next tower and we can go ahead and take the gate. But it's literally down to this because we still need 12 minutes to build a tower. And this has to burn the entire way. Now we're almost halfway through that burn. This is a weaker tower, so it's going to take a lot less to burn. We're doing well. We're doing well. Unfortunately, and I say unfortunately because we damn well tried. We put everything we could into it. And unfortunately, we start to swarm the gate, the tower, because they get it filled. And once they get it refilled, and then they get it fixing like they just did, now we're in trouble. Now we have to rally it. We cannot swarm it. And it's going to take 5 minutes to rally. It's going to take 5 minutes to burn, right? So now we've got 20 minutes. Now we're out of time. So that was officially the end of our push. We could not do it at this point. If we had another half an hour, we would have been able to take the gate, right? If we had another half an hour, we would have been able to take the gate. But in this situation, now we have to decide what's best for our alliance. And what's best for everybody in this point? Well, I mean, you can decide for yourself. For us, we chose to take the 6 or the 7 on the opposing side, take our first phase rewards, and just say to hell with the rest of Archipelago. This is one hell of a fight. 6 hours of skirmish, cost a heck of a ton of resources, a heck of a ton of troops. Might drops from 120 million to 108 over the event, right? Lots of troop deaths. Right? I'm under 1 million infantry now, so I'm hurting. Don't ask me if I'm hurting. I'm hurting. But that was effectively the end of it, which sucks. But that doesn't mean that we're going to stop. We're going to keep pushing until the timer goes, because at the end of the day, right, you don't give up. You don't give up. So we're still going to push. We're still going to fight. We're going to take the 7. I'm going to back up real quick so we can take that 7, pass some armaments around so I can give it to my Bodala instead, and get that tower. Because as long as we get the tower, we're going to get those phase 1 rewards. And truth be told, phase 1 rewards are important. So I don't blame him for that. So we now have 2 rallies going on the tower. We're cutting down. We've got 7 minutes left in this, right? We're starting to see them put up another tower. So it's like it becomes a situation where now we have to burn one, build one, and then burn another one. And we just don't have the time. But it was so much fun. This was 6 hours of anxiety, stress, war, watching the pieces move, right? Strategizing. And it was just so much fun. Did we win? No. Was it a showing? Absolutely. Would I do it again? 100%. Would I invite HNB back? 100%. Those guys were amazing. They absolutely played like all-stars, performed like all-stars. It, to me, was the equivalent of the NHL going to play with a beer league for the night. And you know what? It was amazing. These guys are all-stars. I cannot say enough how thankful I was about the whole thing. Now, in this last little bit here, we're just going to talk a little bit about the end of the game. So we didn't get what we wanted. We got screwed. We played our hearts out. We did as best we could. We did fall a little bit short, but at the end of the day, I am very happy. It was a great performance. We end up getting good rewards out of the deal anyways, because we end up getting phase 1 rewards anyways. We end up taking the gate rewards. So you get, the stuff that you can. But here's the basics, guys. You have to ask yourself what's more important, right? Now here's the thing. We could have very handedly not captured the 7 and taken our coin toss. Had it gone our way, great. Had it not gone our way, we would have lost so much more. So that becomes the possibility. We chose to take our rewards and lick our wounds because it was already an expensive AR with how much we had to fight. A 6-hour skirmish is not cheap, guys. Right? Because you're consistently healing throughout. You got troops you're going to be healing throughout. Right? So it's not something that's cheap. And you have these top guys that are fighting the field consistently. I mean, they're healing ridiculously. And the resources isn't cheap either. It's billions of resources. Even in this situation, it's billions of resources. So I give these guys a ton of credit. I give them a ton of thanks for coming to hang out with us. And like I said, I would do it again any minute, right? Anytime. But that being said, guys, that is it for me. That is it for the Archipelago. I hope you enjoyed, because I know I did. If you did, like, comment, subscribe. Comment down below about what your favorite part of it was. Don't forget to check out thcemporium.ca for any of your the High Guy or the Mrs. merch. And lastly, like I mentioned, if you are looking for a new place to play, if you're tier 5 and tier 6, or you're looking to step yourself up in a leadership position in regards to rally leading or garrison leading and things like that, reach out to me in game, region 420, Alliance GROP. I'll either be R4 or R5, one of the two, because I switch off. Reach out to me in game. If anything, we'll talk, and I like to talk to people. But other than that, guys, thanks very much for tuning in. I love y'all. Love, peace, chicken grease, and until next time, stay lifted.